Hello, welcome to another edition of the Book Knowledge Share. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to share another book with you this week. As always, I'm going to go through a book that I've read recently or listened to on audiobook and going to share some ideas that I picked up from the book. This isn't a book review, but it is something that I'm hoping will get you excited about reading because reading is really, really important. You learn a lot. And you know what? One of the things that I've learned recently is that you don't know what you don't know. So engage, read stuff. And speaking of engagement, take some notes here, but let me know if you've read this book. If you've read it, let me know what you've thought of the book. Let me know what you've learned from the book. Let's have a conversation down in the comments below, okay? So this week, the book is Creativity Inc. It's by Ed Catmull, who is one of the founders of Pixar. Pixar, the movie studio that we all know and love from movies such as Toy Story and Cars. And later on in the evolution of Pixar, they become part of Disney. And so that's really, really interesting that they started a company, made it big enough that one of the greatest animation studios in the world decided, you know what, we're going to buy you. We think you're important. We think you're doing something really, really important and special. So that's Pixar. That's Ed Catmull. Really smart guy. He's a computer engineer by training and became a manager, a reluctant manager, I guess, if you want. And he's got some really interesting ideas in terms of how to manage a company and in particular how to manage a creative company. If you've ever worked at an ad agency or in a marketing firm or a marketing department, you know that creativity is something that's hard to do. You can't just bottle it up and call it a day. So here are some wonderful ideas that I have gotten from this book that I think will help you out if you are thinking about a creative team. If you're trying to create a creative team and you want them to thrive creatively. So here we go. All right, number one, the first thing is expect your team to be candid. Don't just request it. You got to expect your team. You need to pull out the truth, and you need to expect that your team will give you the hard truth. You know, sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's painful. But you know what? It is the best way forward. It's one of those things that's going to allow you to work quickly and, more importantly, freely. You don't have to be afraid about checking somebody's work. And, you know, on the other side, you don't have to be afraid that somebody's coming to backstab you or something like that, right? So it creates a lot of speed. It allows you to work quickly. And what this means is that managers need to default to trust instead of secrecy. That means allowing your team to understand some of those things that are coming down the pipe from higher up. You got to default to trust that your team will do the right thing. Another great thing that came out of this book, number two, is that story is king. If you're creating a campaign for a marketing campaign or a movie or a book or a song, you got to get the story right. Once you get that story right, once you can make the story plausible and you can make it meaningful and all the parts connect together well, some of the things that come up later on, there will be little bits of flaws that come up, right? And people will understand that and they'll ignore that. But if you get the story wrong, if the story doesn't make sense, then those flaws become so much more obvious. All right, so get the story right first, and then you'll do well. The next thing that I got out of this thing is that different viewpoints that people have when we're trying to solve a problem or when we're trying to get closer to truth, different viewpoints are additive. They're not competitive. So seek different viewpoints. Ask people what their opinion is of a certain challenge. Ask them what they would do to solve a certain problem or challenge. Seek different viewpoints. They are additive. They will help you understand things from a different perspective. They will help you understand where you might be missing a key piece of information, and that will help you to find the truth, which is really what we're after. Find the truth. So seek different viewpoints so that you can get an additive picture of what's happening in front of you. Okay, now, speaking of problems and challenges, you've got to seek out the root cause. Don't just look at the first thing that comes to mind as the problem. Continue to ask why. What would that do? If we have this problem, oh, what would that do? Why is that? You probably heard of the method called the 5 whys, and that's really similar. You got to try and find the root cause, not the superficial cause, but the root cause of a challenge, right? So you might be looking at, okay, why there's water leaking out of my sink? And you say, okay, well, is it the faucet? Okay, you look at the faucet, you see there's stuff dripping out of there, so why is the faucet dripping? Then you start to look at the bushings that are in it, or the seal that's in it. Oh, the seal cracked. Why is the seal cracked? Right? So did you tighten up the faucet too much? That might be a root cause. I don't know. But you continue to keep asking why until you get to that point where you can't ask why anymore. And a lot of times that ends up being the root cause of the problem. So by finding that root cause, you can solve the problem from happening again down the future. Okay? Make sense? Cool. All right, moving on. The next thing that I got out of this book, and I thought they were really cool, I've done these before, and they're postmortem. So anytime I've had a project, I've completed a project, I would work with my team to go over things that we did well, things that we want to continue to do next time, and things that we might want to change or adjust for the next project. And by doing postmortem, we can start to uncover that feedback loop. We can start to look at things that are going right, things that are going wrong, and we can start to solve problems so that we can get better and better down the road. Now, one of the things that was suggested out of this book, in terms of postmortem, is to switch up the format a little bit. So instead of using an Excel sheet, which is something that I used to do, I used to kind of ask the team to fill out their portion of the Excel sheet and get us started, get us some starting points so that we'd be prepared for the meeting when we came in. Now, some of the other things that you might be able to do is maybe you just have a round table at the meeting. Maybe you pick out 2 or 3 specific challenges that, you know what, we noticed we had these problems on this project. Let's just discuss them. That's all we're going to do in our postmortem. So think about different formats. Think about different locations. Think about different ways for you to do it, whether you do it like a secret format where people are filling out sort of like a ballot and then you discuss them one by one. There's all sorts of ways to do it. And I think really importantly to remember when you are doing postmortem to focus on the behaviors. Don't try to point fingers at people. It's like, hey, you did that. No, none of that, okay? You got to make sure that you focus on the behaviors, what people were behaving, how they were behaving that caused a problem or challenge. Cool? All right. Finally, the last thing, and I thought this was sort of the overall agenda within this book, and I thought this was a really, really key point, is that, you know, when you come up with ideas, when you are trying something new, when you're trying to innovate, when you're trying to be an entrepreneur, a lot of times when we first start out, our ideas are messy. They are what Catmull calls, in terms of the movies that they were creating. A lot of times when they started with these movies, they're what he called ugly duckling. The story's messed up. The animation is very rudimentary. There's, fake voiceovers in there. It's just a messy project at the beginning. It's not a beautiful piece of work. And all ideas start out that way. They start out as this sort of ugly duckling. And you need to shape it over time by having regular feedback, getting regular input from, what we talked about earlier, a wide variety of viewpoints. And as you take those different viewpoints, as you take those different pieces of feedback, as you take those different inputs, you can start to mold it and shape your idea so that it becomes a beautiful one. Okay? So don't despair if your ideas are perfect. If they're not perfect at the beginning, that's okay. Take your time. It's a process. And shape it, mold it, make it your own. Okay? So there you go. That is Creativity Inc. Here's the book again by Ed Catmull. Check it out if you want to learn a little bit more about creativity and how to manage an entrepreneurial style organization or a creative organization. Other than that, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know if you've read the book down in the comments. And if you want me to do a book review on any other book, a book that you're thinking about, let me know in the comments as well. Okay? So until next time, Jordan signing off. Thank you so much.